Hey everyone, welcome back from our extended Memorial Day weekend break. I hope you had a great time. I hope you were able to spend time with family and to catch up on any much needed rest. So today we are going to be discussing The Soldier by Rupert Brooke, and that is especially significant and exciting because yesterday for you, today for me, since I take these videos a day in advance, yesterday for you is Memorial Day. And Memorial Day is an American holiday in which we commemorate the lives of the soldiers who gave up their lives in battle and in service to this country. And so even though The Soldier is a British poem about an English soldier, I think some of the themes that will be discussed in this poem are also very appropriate when we think of the purpose of Memorial Day and patriotism in general. So if you can, please take out a copy of the poem. If you're using the device that you would use otherwise to access the poem, don't stress, don't worry about it. I actually have to use my laptop while we discuss this poem today because I don't have a physical copy of this poem, and the device I would otherwise be looking at it with is my phone, which I'm using to record these. So it's a great example of how sometimes we have to dual device ourselves in our learning. All right. So The Soldier by Rupert Brooke. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England, there shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's, breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. And think this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, give somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven. So this is an example of a Petrarchan sonnet. As you remember from our lessons before the extended weekend, sonnets are 14-line poems that are very song-like, hence the term sonetto, which in Italian means little song. And in this, and reference when you see me do this gesture this way, that's towards my laptop that has the copy of the poem. In this Petrarchan sonnet, it's a little imperfect because the octave, the first stanza in the poem, doesn't have your traditional Petrarchan sonnet rhyme scheme. So in a perfect Petrarchan sonnet, the rhyme scheme would begin A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A, and then the sestet would have C-D-E, C-D-E, which we do see in Rupert Brooke's poem. In the second stanza, the sestet, he follows the traditional rhyme scheme of a Petrarchan sonnet, where away rhymes with the line that ends in day, and no less rhymes with gentleness, and given kind of rhymes with heaven. But with his first stanza, with the octave, he actually follows the more Shakespearean sonnet form of rhyming, right? The first line ends with me and connects with B, so it has that A, B, A, B, and then that C, D, C, D rhyme, where a Petrarchan sonnet ideally would only have two rhymes in the first octave, and they would connect between the first, fourth, fifth, and eighth line, and the second, third, sixth, and seventh line would connect. But despite that, this would be considered a Petrarchan sonnet because the intentions are for it to be Petrarchan in nature. And as we mentioned before, sonnets are typically thought of as love poems. And so who or what does the speaker of this poem love? Well, we know that it's England because it's about a soldier who is giving up his life for his country, or talking about that hypothetical scenario of giving up his life for his country. So let's look at the first two lines. If I should die, and because it's titled A Soldier, we're thinking in the context of battle, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field, so not England, but another field, the field of a country that England might be at war with, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England, there shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed. So the speaker is talking about him being a soldier fighting perhaps in an English war against a country that is England's enemy at the time, right? And that idea of him dying in battle, but in the soil where his body is buried, where he's fallen, there's a part of England there because he's been buried there. And that's what he's referring to: in that rich earth, a richer dust concealed. Now, this idea that even though it's a foreign land, a richer dust is underneath the earth of that country because it contains a British man, an English soldier. A dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam. A body of England's, breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. So the kind of life this soldier lived before he died at battle, the way that England nurtured him. We see a lot of nurturing verbs in this poem, right? That his country has given him flowers, shown him love, that it's given him air to breathe, and that's the sustenance that's really propelled his existence, right? An English body breathing English air, and that while in England and being raised there, he was washed by the rivers, blessed by the sons of home. And so this idea that falling for his country is something admirable because now it's almost preserving England in another part of the country. Let's move on to the sestet. And think this heart all evil shout away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts of England given. So that idea of when we come to our death, which some of you at this point might be thinking, wow, poetry is a lot about death. Sometimes, since we just read Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night. These first 3 lines of the sestet are addressing like that idea of when we die, we supposedly have our life flash before our eyes, not behind our eyes. That's interesting. We have our life flash before our eyes, and then this idea that on his deathbed or towards the end of his life, that this soldier is recollecting the thoughts by England given, his memories there, and his experiences, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends and gentleness, in hearts at peace under an English heaven. So this idea that while the soldier has given his life for his country, that's what he'll be thinking of, that's the motivation behind his whole mission, his whole life, and then his whole death. And so what we get, the theme from this poem, is this idea of incredible patriotism, right? Although we're not English, so maybe we don't share the same passion that this soldier has for England. There's this overwhelming love for his country and this comforting notion that his death as a soldier won't be in vain because he is fighting and dying for something that he loves, which is his country. So my thought for this project, or not this project, but for this homework assignment coming up, is to have you choose either the Shakespearean sonnet form or the Petrarchan sonnet form to write a poem about what being an American means to you. Now, America has a very long and intricate history for such a short time span as a country. As a country, we're really only about 244 years old. However, we've seen a lot during that time, and I think the definition of what it means to be an American has certainly changed, depending on your view of the country. Now, you as an American might choose to focus your attention more on the way our country began with the founding fathers and the, different philosophical conversations that they were having while forming this country. Some of you might come from recently emigrated families where you are maybe the first or second generation American, and so being an American relates a little bit more closely to this idea of new opportunities and America being this new land. And so your poem might address one of those very 2 different perspectives. It might be a combination of both. When I think of what America means to me, I really genuinely think of my identity as Italian American, especially living in New York. In the same way that Rupert Brooke, for his poem, brings up England's rivers and being blessed by the sons of home, when he brings up that pastoral imagery, I might look at my identity as an American and think more of the metallic skyscrapers of Manhattan and the beaches of Long Island where I grew up, and maybe the pizza that I ate because, as I mentioned, Italian-American household. To give you more perspective, I had you look at two other poems that also kind of relate to country patriotism and the background of America. So if you'll turn to I Too by Langston Hughes, I'm going to read this out loud, and again, if you don't have a copy of the poem, don't worry about it. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen, then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful and be ashamed. I too am America. So in this poem, it's patriotic, but in a different sense, right? We had spoken a little bit about Langston Hughes when we read that short story earlier in the year by him. However, he'll be coming up as we'll be reviewing the Harlem Renaissance in this poetry unit. But in this poem, I Too, Langston Hughes offers a different interpretation of what it means to be an American, right? He talks about the unfortunate history of segregation that is involved in our patriotic history, right? And it wasn't just America that struggled with this, but this idea that racism is unfortunately a part of America's history. But in this poem, notice how he addresses how the country grows, right? He goes from, I too sing America, I'm the darker brother, who gets rejected, right? Who gets sent into the kitchen, who's being told to eat somewhere else and that he has to be separate. But he acknowledges in that second or third stanza, tomorrow I'll be at that table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. We see in this poem this progression, this confidence that the speaker has that one day things will change, that America is this country, right? That's changing, that's growing, that is improving, and that will eventually accommodate him, and we'll see him as the future when he says, I too am America, right? Where his identity as an American isn't bound by his race, but is instead bound by his personhood. And so this is a poem where we see kind of his American identity being shaped by the potential that America has to offer to grow. Now I want you to turn to I Ask My Mother to Sing by Lee Young Lee. So Lee Young Lee is actually a modern writer. He's still very much alive. And I have to say he's one of the emerging modernist writers that I have to just commend. He's an Asian American writer, and I think he just represents exactly that immigrant experience that I was talking about when I think of America. You know, for me, I just personally see America as this country of immigration, right? Even from its origin, you had the Puritan settlers coming over from Europe. You had the French, the Spanish, and the English all coming here to make conquest of America. And then fast forward about 100 or so years, you have the Southern and Eastern Europeans coming here to find solace, and that's how my family came over, you know. Things were really terrible for them back in Italy, and so America was where they wanted to be. And Lee Young Lee kind of captures this, except from the Asian American perspective. He's a Chinese writer, a Chinese American writer. His parents were born in China. They left China for a while to be in Indonesia, which is where he was born, but eventually the whole family came here. And so I Ask My Mother to Sing is about kind of the immigrant experience. It's set in America with this family reflecting on their time back in China. So let's read through it together and then we'll discuss, just like with the other poems, okay? She begins, and my grandmother joins her. Mother and daughter sing like young girls. If my father were alive, he would play his accordion and sway like a boat. I've never been in Peking or the Summer Palace, nor stood on the great stone boat to watch the rain begin on Kunming Lake, the picnickers running away in the grass. But I love to hear it sung, How the water lilies fill with rain until they overturn, spilling water into water, then rock back and fill with more. Both women have begun to cry, but neither stops her song. So in this poem, we get the sense that the speaker himself has never been to China, but he's hearing about it from his mother and his grandmother, right, who have traveled from China and settled in America, which is his home, right? He talks about having never been there, but living instead here. I have never been in Peking or the Summer Palace. So even though America's home, China is his past, right? And we see this represented in the way that he hears these stories that his mother and his grandmother are singing to him. And so for many of you, maybe America means also retaining some of those cultural traditions, and how America's a place where a lot of different cultures and people groups can come together and belong. Your poem, your sonnet, does not have to be about this. Perhaps you'd like to focus a little bit more on the traditional aspects of America, like maybe your family comes from a more rural area and maybe you've come from that to New York, and so you're used to America being more like gingham patterns, outdoor barbecues, having picnics and traditional food like hot dogs and hamburgers and sandwiches, and maybe that's more so America to you. You'd rather just write your poem centering it around some of those things that are native to our country, and things that people would celebrate about the idea of America. Maybe you, on the other hand, though, like me, kind of define America more by its identity as this melting pot of different people groups, and kind of being able to appreciate the different cultures that are represented here, right? That's especially something that I personally love about New York, is being able to be in this area with so many different cultures and backgrounds that you get to learn about and experience and be able to share with. So I can't wait to read your poems. They're not due until Thursday, so woohoo! I decided to give you 2 days because I want really good ones. But you can choose. You can either write it as a Shakespearean sonnet or you can write it as a Petrarchan sonnet. I want you to write a sonnet, though, about what it means to you to be an American here, and to definitely share your personal experience. It could be one of those two. It could be completely different, maybe something that we didn't discuss, or, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video lecture, it could be centered more around just the freedoms that this country has to offer and some of the philosophical ideas that were fused into the country's manifestation. I really miss you guys. I hope you are well, and I hope that you are able to continue spending time with your family and to continue resting well, even though the weekend break is over. And yes, I'll see you all soon. Bye.